Thank you. I appreciate your time today, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen. I will try to follow Tina's guidance as much as I possibly can since she's at the top of my screen. Vendita's been around since 2008. We have been working in the data space and actually helping with large organizations like IBM with the implementation of data systems, procurement of data for the better part of over a decade, built very tight relationships with Oracle. We recognized as the cloud started coming into the marketplace over the last several years, and everybody kept transitioning over that, there's a real need for the tool sets that manage the data, to manage the tools that hold the data within most enterprises that are in those organizations today. Not everybody's going to move to the cloud. Most organizations are going to have some sort of a hybrid type model because not all data can move to a public cloud. Next slide. Here's the fundamental problem we're seeing. Just in the last 2 years, 2.5 quintillion bytes of data, I didn't even know what that quintillion number was until I did the research, is being created every day, and 90% of the world's data is being created in the last 2 years. You can only see that problem getting larger and getting bigger and bigger as we keep moving forward. The bigger problem we're seeing right now is just the actual talent that's there. Just recently, I did a study and we looked at there's over 500,000 open positions just around data and how to manage data out in the United States today through LinkedIn. Next slide. What are we really trying to do? Most data is housed in databases, either Oracle, Microsoft, or now a lot of open source databases. And and this is how they're managing those data today. Pam, the key use case here, as we called her in red here, she comes into work and she has her routine tasks that she has to do to manage that data every day. There's quintillions, millions of data coming in. She has to do these routine processes every day. And then guess what? She's then got to look over here to the right and pick out one of these different point solutions that's been in the market for at least 10 years that's going to try to help her with either doing a monitoring piece, doing tuning or support. She has to become an expert in each one of those. So we did a study on that and we looked at 78% of her day is spent doing routine manual tasks. Well, guess what the executives care about? They actually care about these special projects, a SOX project or a software compliance project that comes along. And now she's very busy handling routine processes. And what does she do? She has a very limited amount of time to handle special projects. Next slide. This is where we came up with Moz. Okay, we did work with Gartner Group and they have recognized this. We're the only single pane of glass to handle all those routine processes across multiple databases that are out there. Oracle, Microsoft, and your 3 major open source databases are out there. When we look at the study that we did, looking at a couple of different database organizations that manage that, we looked at how Moz can actually reduce the amount of routine processes, the amount of labor it takes by about 42% was one particular organization. We looked at when they had a SOC, what does it take to do SOX? If you ever talked to an organization that had a SOX audit, everybody stops. The entire database department stops doing everything and they have to run a lot of manual processes. We've seen we can do a 30% reduction with that by just being able to use the platform because all those processes are now captured within the Moz automation platform. We also went back to our roots, okay? A big thing, if you ever talk to a CIO and I talk to them and ask them about software compliance, have they ever purchased or used more software than they purchased? According to Oracle, 60% of their customers, and they're the largest database supplier out there today, are out of compliance. They're using more software than they actually have purchased. And an average compliance solution, or usually a correction, is $2.9 million. Next slide. So when we look at this market, we are actually consolidating three particular major issues. One is the software asset management component around Oracle and Microsoft, just in the database space. We are one of 10 partners with Oracle that have been given the verification certification. So we can go in and verify how many licenses are being used, report that back to the end client, or report that back to Oracle if the client chooses. And now they know that are they using what they actually purchased. That is a $5.5 billion market. Automation space is coming on very, very strong. We're seeing that's the largest growth area And we're now using we're taking all those different individual processes that Pam's got to do and putting them all in one single platform. So she doesn't have to go from one screen to the next to the next. SOX tools, it's becoming a bigger issue every day and growing on a regular basis. We see the market that we're going after being almost a $9.4 billion tool market right now. And we're trying to consolidate that and simplify it. Next slide. Here's our principles. We're trying to make the DBA's life better. All right, if we look at what they're doing right now, and I thought, you know, as I was growing up, my brother-in-law was a DBA and had lots of little badges and little tools on his belt. And every day, every Thanksgiving, he had to go off. He was very important. He got pulled away, or he couldn't make it to the baseball game. We're trying to make that person that's managing the data, let them get home at night, be able to handle, handle those routine tasks much better. We're also taking right now, looking at automating 70% of the routine processes with the study we have today. We're looking at adding PyTorch with AI to actually take down to everything that you do down to 3 individual steps. We're also trying to make this a much lower cost solution. So if you look at all the tools that are out there, you got to buy each individual one. They're very large with their functionality, but you don't need everything. So we're trying to bring it. We're also trying to make it much lower, much easier to consume. When you bring these things in, ours is an agentless tool technology, so we can actually deliver this through AWS and run it through a SaaS model. If we capture just half of the total addressable market in the next 5 years is one of our goals, that's a $50 million business that we've got. We've already got letters of intent from the CTO of the DoD. We've been to the Pentagon. They like this. They have a $500 million contract with Oracle for all that, that they'd like to have us help them out with. We're also looking to go in HIPAA. HIPAA is another big area. Healthcare is a large project, a large area that we're looking at, and we're looking at doing a Series A round within the next 3 years. Next slide. This is where we are right today. So between over the next 18 months, we're looking to acquire 50 new customers, and with the partner model that we're having, that's a $4.5 million business. 23. We're looking at it going to 75 with the ARR. We're looking at a $9.5 million business as far as revenue thing. Our current traction, we have total of 10 customers on this today, and I've actually spent from my previous business about $6 million in actually building the platform so we can actually handle these transactions. Currently today, we've had release 4 or 5, which has all the functionality that we discussed in the platform. We have inbound marketing, outbound marketing going on. So we're doing the SEO, understanding who our personas are, who we're tracking. We actually have fractional VP. We have sales teams in place today, as I mentioned earlier. And I also mentioned our relationship with Oracle, where we see our focus today, a lot of B2B sales, working with our partners. We're now in the AWS marketplace. We'll be there by the end of the year. And then we also have referrals coming from Oracle, because if they try to go in, if you look at their end of the year reports, they actually have a section of how much money they make out of compliance. And it's a pretty big number that Oracle makes. And Microsoft has the same challenges with their databases as well. Next slide. It's me. I built a company up to $30 million, already done it once. I've been in the IT industry for the 30 years. Gene keeps on top of the numbers, and then Bill is literally an expert with PyTorch. He's the platform builder. This is his baby. He knows exactly how the technology is, but he's been working with me for 8 years. I won't say how many years of experience we have, because I don't want to offend Gene, because she might be listening. So next slide. This is what we're looking for right now, $3 million investment. For 15% of the company, convertible notes. We look at we can give you a return of 3.5 to 5 back. Here's where we're going to spend the money on. We believe that we've got a development team that's pretty solid, so we want to add more things around HIPAA. We want to add more things around possibly moving into Azure. And then the rest of it is going to be sales and marketing. We're ready to get to market. The product is ready to hit the market. That's what I have. Thank you very much. Did I do good, Tina?
Very good. Wonderful. So maybe I'll start off with the question then, since I'm already speaking.
Sure.
Can you tell me about the revenue in the past year? Is the product just launched this year? So that I think you're projecting 4.5 million revenue this year. So how far along are you in meeting that?
Yeah, Yeah, we've got 10 customers on different parts of the product itself. So the product is 4.5, has the entire platform, which we are now have the automation. We have the certification from Oracle, which we just acquired to that. And then that has just been released here at the end of June. So we've got a total of 10 customers on different parts of the older one, but they haven't converted up to 4.5 as of yet. But our pipeline is growing pretty aggressively.
And this platform, when you have each customer try, is that a lot of work to customize to their system, or just something that just drop in, plug and play, ready to go?
Actually, it takes us less than a half a day to put the product in. We can connect to the servers and they can start you running the product as it sits today. All the processes that are there, routine backup, everything you need to do for Oracle, do for Microsoft, they're already pre-built. So literally we can connect that into your servers. Takes you about 2 hours most times, and you can be utilizing the product by the end of the day. When it comes to the compliance, same thing. Literally, it's a half a day, and we can run that compliance report and let you know if you're in or out of compliance within a day.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Aston. Yeah, I think you have a question.
Yeah, thanks, Doug. I was curious, what is the typical size of your client? And then also, I understand it's a SaaS business model, but how are you charging clients currently?
We're charging for a 2-year subscription to the client for each client. So you get the compliance, because that's the kind of more painful point. And then with that, we have 2 what we call administrative users for that. And that's $139 for 2 years. And that's the price point we started off with. Now we have a scaled up based on number of servers, based on the number of additional users you're going to have. And that's the model we're using right now. And then whatever cost that they have by running it on AWS is going to be their cost as they move forward, whatever the monthly charges, because the customer could use the platform very heavily, and they could have a very high AWS bill with us, and so we don't want to be responsible for that. And then as far as this type of customers, we were trying to stay away from the very large companies. We're trying to stay more in your enterprise space, say less in your under your outside the Fortune 400 or so, and staying in more that the smaller. Kind of more fragmented organizations. That's kind of an ideal place for us. Like AT&T, we'd think would be a big company, but they're ideal because they're very fragmented. And we found the same thing with healthcare. They're usually very fragmented. So we get started with a particular area, start there, and then we work out from there.
Go ahead, Saul.
Doug, I think just a follow-up question, sorry. Is the pricing different for different customers, or is it like a standard contract you have for a certain size of customers?
Standard. It's standard customer. It's by server and by user.
Okay.
And this is all just one sort of technical question, I guess. You said agentless, and that always catches my ear and my interest, because there sometimes the security problems go with those designs. With a SaaS and an agentless architecture, who's in charge of the credentials and the secrecy and the protection of those sensitive connections in your architecture?
The customer is going to be responsible for that. We use AWS primarily because they can take care of about 80% of the connections for us. And then anything additional to that, we've met any kind of the NASA standards that the government requires as of today. And then beyond that, that's, we've never had any challenges with our customers when it comes to the connections and the security issues, because that's already pre-built in there.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on.
One of the other values that we have with the one of the other values that we do have with the platform is, we do track the actual users itself, so that way we can control who actually is touching what data within the organization. So